Okay, now I get to geek out. All right, let's welcome to the screen, ladies and gentlemen, meet New York Times best-selling author Peter David. Peter, welcome. Welcome to CyberCon, my man. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. Oh, I think you're...
No, I'm kidding around.
There you go. There you go. Oh, wow. Hey, man, thank you for coming in and joining the CyberCon team. We really do appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here, and I really don't have anything else to do, so...
There you go. There's a lot of that going around, I hear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going around. So let's start there. How are you? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm working on comic book scripts. I'm working on novels. I'm keeping myself busy. I mean, honestly, my life hasn't changed all that much. I generally tend to sit around the house and work on stuff. I don't have to go out. I don't have to interact with other people. So my life is pretty much unaffected by this. The only dramatic change is that my daughter is no longer at high school. She's here at the house and going to school on her computer. But other than that, pretty much everything is the same.
Yeah, I get that. You know, we have a baker's dozen around here of kids that are all grown, but we have one that's still home. He's 9 years old and is doing the virtual school. How's your daughter liking that? Is it something she's enjoying doing? Would she rather get back to her friends?
I think she's enjoying it, actually. I think she likes doing the work and not having to deal with the idiots at the high school.
Yeah, well, I can get that. I know our little guy he's doing the work okay. He loves the work. It's easier to do, and it's easier to keep at a self pace. It's the friends. He's little, so he misses that social interaction.
Sure.
Yeah, with the kids.
My daughter is 17, not so much.
Yeah, not so much. She's just like, go away, idiots. I'm good. Give me my computer. I'm good. All right. So, well, since you're home and working like as normal, you know, fortunately we have the same benefit. We work in the studio, which is about 7.5 inches from our room. Right. So it's not hard to do. But since you're working, are you working on anything you can share with us? What are you working on? Any big?
I'm working on a third symbiote Spiderman limited series, and I'm working on a new limited series, The Maestro.
Wow! All right,
I'm not really sure if they even announced that yet.
Well, I think they might have just now. Oops.
Yeah. Well, it's basically a prequel to Future Imperfect, showing how the Maestro, back when he was the Hulk, wound up becoming the Maestro.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
It is.
I'm loving that, man. Okay, so guys, if you have questions, put them in the chat, please. I will try to read them as quickly as I can and get them onto the screen. Dina, you're going to monitor that, right? See what people are asking. In the meantime, I'm just going to do what I do, and we're going to chat a little bit here.
Okay.
First of all, I want to tell you, Peter, I am a giant fan. I love your Star Trek work. But I love your screenwriting work. You wrote a couple of my favorite Babylon 5 episodes.
Ah, excellent.
So when Mark said Peter David will come on to CyberCon, I did that whole girly thing. Ooh! And then I shut up because I wanted to look manly. So let me ask you, I'm a huge fan of yours. Who are you a huge fan of? Who are your biggest influences? Who do you make that sound for? Besides your wife, I don't want to know about that.
Well, unfortunately, most of the people who are my biggest idols are dead.
Then if they came back, that would be a reason to make a noise. One
right.
like this.
Harlan Ellison, Stan Lee, Stephen King is a big influence on my work and is really a great guy, as it turns out. I mean, back when I was 20 or 21, I went to a Stephen King book signing, which indicates how far back this was. And I told him that I was an aspiring writer. And he took my book and he wrote, "Best of luck on your writing career." And now when I'm behind my table at conventions and people come up to me and tell me that they are aspiring writers, I tell them about what Stephen King wrote on my book when I told him that. And then I write on their books, best of luck on your writing career. And I tell them that it's their job to get to my side of the table and do that for somebody else who's an aspiring writer.
That's fantastic. That's what it's all about, guys. For those of you who aren't familiar with the creative arts community, it is truly a community. And guys like Peter and obviously Stephen King they're the ones that pass it down. They are the mentors to the rest of us who are, kicking it around and trying to get it started. And someday when it's your turn, be a good mentor too. One quick shout out before we ask the next set of questions or whatever to Peter. If you have donated to our Center for Disaster Philanthropy's COVID-19 Response Fund, please let us know in the chat. We are keeping a tally. Peter, I don't know if you were in the room for this, but they have talked me into letting them paint me as the Joker if we raise $2,000.
Okay.
So, and I am not a cosplayer. I do not do that. I am terrified if my wife brings the makeup brush too close to me. I flinch. So now I have to be painted if we raise the money. So 1995 and stop there.
How much have you got so far?
500. We are an hour in. We're 500, which scares the hell out of me.
got a ways to go yet.
That's right. That's right. So, okay. Guys, we are here in the room right now in CyberCon 2020 with Peter David, screenwriter, author, comic. Just guys, this guy writes stuff. That comes from his bio, not me. He writes stuff, a lot of stuff. So,
well, I say that because
games.
There's
actually written game scripts, right?
There's always an urge to pigeonhole people. Oh, this guy, he's a science fiction writer. Oh, this guy writes thrillers. Oh, this guy writes horror. People want to try and put you into a hole. And I am endeavoring to resist being so easily categorized. Because I write science fiction, I write fantasy, I write nonfiction, I write straight up drama. I try to write as many different things as I can. And I find that the simplest way to describe what I do is to say I write stuff. I just figure that's a more general way of putting it.
Well, because I think isn't that the idea is to not be especially in today's market, in today's times, to not be pigeonholed into that one thing.
Yes, exactly.
Because a writer's going to write. They're going to write if you give them a pen and a piece of paper or a keyboard, and you never know what they're going to create. What is it? Have you ever had an idea that was so far-fetched from what the one you were working on that it's hard to have two the same thoughts at the same time? No, you just go right to it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that is fantastic, man. How did you get your start as a professional writer? We know that you got the autograph and he said good luck with your career. Right. So what was the first one where you thought, oh, I'm having good luck?
Well, let's see. My first professional sale was a short story to Isaac Asimov's science fiction magazine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that goes back. And I thought, that's it. I'm now a professional writer. And then I didn't manage to sell anything else for a number of years. And I realized it wasn't going to be quite that easy. And then I managed to start writing for Marvel Comics. And that's where my writing career took off. And I was also writing books on the side, and I wound up getting an agent and generating a novel career. And at this point in my life, I've had published over 100 novels and over 1,000 comic books. So I think I'm starting to settle in as being a writer. I mean, most of my friends who are writers have secondary jobs that are how they wind up actually earning livings. They're teachers or editors or whatever. I am one of the few that I can think of who does this full time, and I consider myself extremely lucky in that regard.
That's fantastic, man. And from those early days, was there a moment when you knew that you'd be able to do this full time, when this would be that was what you were going to do? Or did it just happen so gradually it kind of slipped in?
No, it really happened in 1987. I decided that I was writing enough comic books that I could make enough money to actually do it full time. So I took the leap and became a full-time writer because DC was interested in offering me work, which they couldn't offer me at the time because I was working for Marvel Comics in the direct sales department. But DC told me that if I became um, a full-time writer, that they would be able to offer me work as well, which they did. And so in 1987, I became a full-time writer.
Wow.
It was really, a little bit of a leap of faith, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, I've managed to keep it going all this time.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. It is. It sounds. It's a good moment in transition that you can remember. From the chat, Tim Harris asks if Peter, you would please tell us a Stan Lee story. Do you have a good Stan story from back in the day? I'm sure you have many.
I've got dozens of Stan Lee stories. Which one? Okay. I was out in California visiting with Stan, and hi, honey. I was out in California visiting with Stan, and we were driving somewhere. And Stan asked me what I was doing with the Hulk, or what I was planning to do, because he knew that I was writing the character. And I said, "Well, we switched back to concept that he transforms into the Hulk at night." And Stan said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I mean, we've gone back to what you originally did." And Stan said, "What do you mean originally did? He became the Hulk when he became angry." And I said, "No, in the original 6 issues, particularly in the first couple, he transformed into the Hulk at night. It was a day-night shift, like a werewolf." And Stan said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, I'm absolutely sure about this." And
Wow.
Stan said, "I wonder why we changed it. It was probably," and he thought about it and he said, "It was probably Jack's idea."
That's fantastic. That's awesome. Okay, so I know I've had that moment. I've had that moment when I said something in public, and a reader actually would say, "No, that's not what happened," and I have to think about it again. Have you had that moment where, like, you tell Stan where he started? Have you had that moment when a reader or somebody come up to you and say, you said something where they had to correct you about your own work?
It's happened from time to time that, I mean, the fans' memories are just amazing. And there indeed have been times where I didn't really remember something. And so I went on Twitter or I went on Facebook and I said, "Hey, can anybody tell me this?" And I'll get like a dozen replies inside of 3 minutes from the fans who just know all this stuff off the top of their head.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's remarkable. And I know, especially my first work, I made some geographical errors because I'm not from the area I was writing, and it was all from research. And so I made some geographical errors that I wasn't aware of. But those were the tiny things that I didn't think anybody was paying attention to until readers walked up and said, "That's not really the way we build this."
Well, my attitude, and the general attitude, is that when you're writing, you always write for the expert. And by that, I mean that you have to assume that whatever it is you're writing, someone who is an actual expert in this stuff is going to be reading it. And they're going to know if you're wrong. If you're writing about something that a cop would say or do, you got to be aware that a cop may be reading it. And if the cop says, "No, no, 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 there's no way that we would say or do that," then you lost that reader. If you're writing about something that a doctor would say or do, whatever it is, you always have to assume that someone who really knows this stuff is going to be reading it. And I always endeavor that if I am writing about something that is outside of my immediate bailiwick of knowledge, I will always try to go to someone who does this stuff for a living and ask them a question to make sure that what I want to write is correct. Or, I will go on Google and I will look it up. I will do whatever I can to make sure that what I'm writing is as accurate as I can possibly make it.
Yeah, it's so important, especially I think as readers and fans and even television or viewers have become more sophisticated. That expert pays attention a lot more than they might have at one time.
Oh yeah.
And so let's talk about that a little bit. The jumping and transitioning from different writing, from being from comics to novelist, from short form to long form writing, and then taking that into screenwriting. And I know you've done some work in games as well.
Yes.
What are those jumps like in terms of transitioning your writing style and things like that?
Well, when you're writing scripts, screenplay, games, comics for that matter, you have to be aware that you're writing for a visual medium. You can't just put two people in a room and have them talk. And I know that because I've actually written stories where I did that. I had an 18-page story I wrote many years ago in which the premise was that the Penguin had Commissioner Gordon's wife in a death trap somewhere in Gotham. And they had managed to capture the Penguin, but he wasn't saying where Gordon's wife was. And the trap was going to be sprung at midnight. And it was like 22 minutes to midnight. And the entire story, well, not the entire story, 16 pages of the story was Gordon and the Penguin in an interrogation room with Gordon interrogating the Penguin. And we had a hell of a hard time finding an artist to do that story because they sent it around to a number of artists and they said, I have no idea how to tell this story and make it interesting for 16 pages when it's just two guys in a room. It was eventually done by Michael Gilbert and P. Craig Russell, and I think they did a terrific job. But the point is that it's very, very hard to tell a non-visual story in a visual medium. Novels are very different. You can have two people in a room talking for 20 pages in a novel, and as long as the dialogue is interesting, you will keep. What the hell? Can you still hear me? My computer just blinked out. There we are.
Yes, we can. You're there.
Okay.
Okay.
My computer blinked out. Oh, okay. No. I know what happened. I haven't touched the keyboard, so assume that I was just, not on the computer at all. Was I still on the entire time?
You were on the whole time.
Oh, okay.
I'm absorbing.
Oh, okay. With novels, as long as what you're saying is interesting, you will continue to keep the reader's interest. So novels are in some ways the easiest to write because it's just you and your ability to tell the story. You don't have to worry about the artist getting the artwork right. You don't have to worry about the actors saying the lines correctly. You don't have to worry about the director screwing up your story. It's you, it's the reader. So novels are the purest form of storytelling short of standing on a street corner and just telling your story to passersby.
Which in today's market, which might be actually an option for storytellers these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. There's an exceptional difference in the style and tenor, particularly in the formatting as you write for a visual medium versus for the novel.
Yes.
When you're taking, have you had the privilege of adapting any of your longer work into a short form, a comic and or a film or television script?
I took my novel Artful and I adapted it into screenplay form just to see if I could. And I wound up using that screenplay to produce a comic book of Artful. A publisher read the book. He wanted to do a comic book version of it. And I said, no problem. I have a screenplay. Just give the screenplay to the artist and let them draw the book. And that was exactly what they did.
That's fantastic. It really is. When you taking the long form and adapting it into the screenplay, you said, just to see if you could do it. What were the biggest challenges that you faced when you were trying to do that in terms of, again, the narrative format is so long and you can spend so much time, and then you're looking at the visual format and you're talking about establishing shots and all the visual formatting that you have to do. What was the challenge there in knowing what content was important to the visual and still did the story justice?
It was just a matter of distilling the story to its essence, because the novel is about 400 pages long. Screenplay on average is about 120 pages. So managing to shrink the story down to 120 pages and still have your story in there was really the challenge that was presented to me. I think I pretty much managed to do it. I just had to figure out what I was going to wind up cutting, what was not absolutely fundamental to telling the story. And it's interesting because it's the opposite of when you're taking a screenplay and turning it into a novel, which, I mean, I always, Alan D. Foster had the best take on that. He said that if you take a screenplay and turn it into a really good novel, you are dismissed as a talented hack. If you take a novel and turn it into a really good screenplay, they give you an Oscar.
There you go.
And
wow.
I thought about that one. Yeah, he's pretty much right, because taking a screenplay and turning it into a novel presents its own challenges, because now you've got 120 pages that you have to turn into 400. You
and
have
fill
to
in all those. It is, the novelization process is fascinating, and it's really funny because you're right. People see an author that's done a novelization of a television or film property or even a comic property, and they look at that author and they're like, oh yeah, that's a great kind of you're the secondary guy, even though you added 3 times, 4 times as much to the story because you had to fill those pages. Whereas if you take it and you can distill that 400 pages into a quarter of that, you get an Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the thing is that screenplays and movies are told in sort of a visual shorthand. I mean, for example, whenever somebody's going anywhere, there's always somewhere to park right in front of where they're going. You never see them having to go into a parking garage and go park their car, unless they're going to wind up getting mugged in the parking garage. But movies happen as a matter of convenience. When you're writing a book, and the difference is that when you're watching a movie, you tend to accept the world as it's being presented to you. If you're writing a novel, you tend to be more skeptical or more demanding. For instance, I'll give you for instance, Spiderman 2, the second Tobey Maguire film. There's a sequence where Mary Jane and Peter Parker are having lunch in a cafe. Suddenly, oh my God, the roof of the cafe is ripped open and Dr. Octopus is there. Peter is stunned. Mary Jane is stunned. He reaches in, grabs Mary Jane, and takes off. You're watching this in the movie theater and you're going, oh my God, Dr. Octopus has kidnapped Mary Jane. I'm reading the screenplay and I'm going, okay, hold it. How the hell did Dr. Octopus manage to show up at the restaurant totally unannounced? He's got 4 freaking mechanical arms. He couldn't just go walking down the street. People are going to go, oh my God, it's Dr. Octopus. And the police are going to show up before he goes like 20 feet. And he showed up at the restaurant. How do you know what restaurant Peter and Mary Jane were at? Did he follow Peter Parker? How in the world did a guy with 4 metal arms follow Peter down the street without being noticed by passersby, or even Peter, who has a spider sense? How did he rip off the top of the restaurant without Peter going, oh my God, something bad is about to happen, and be warned by his spider sense? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Now, because you have experience in both departments in telling a long format story, where we would have had the opportunity in a long format story to say how Doc Ock knew and where he was getting.
Well, I did. I wrote the novelization for Spider-Man 2, And
Yeah.
I had I had a whole setup of how Dr. Octopus managed to get a drop on Peter. And I just kind of.
Oh, wait, let's, yeah. We're having a little connection issues, guys. We have Peter David on the line. We're going to, there he is. Bring him back up. Bring him.
Yeah, okay, there are.
There we go.
And I kind of ignored the fact that Peter got surprised, and I had his spider sense go off an instant before the roof got torn off. I just had to put that in. But yeah, you're always trying to put stuff in because movies, when you think about it, make little to no sense. I mean, some years ago at Dragon Con, I was giving away what was called the Julie Award. It was named for Julie Schwartz, and it's for achievement in a variety of medium. And I was giving it to Leonard Nimoy. And Nimoy was sitting at the table, like right up by the stage. He was sitting there next to William Shatner and Kate Capshaw. And I was talking about the recently released Star Trek film that he was in. And I said, the character Spock is so beloved that in the most recent film, when Kirk ran into him in the ice cave and he first came on camera, the audience in the movie theater that I was in exploded in applause, even though that scene made no sense at all. You take Kirk and you take Spock and you drop them in two random places on a planet and they run into each other in a cave. You could take my wife and me and drop us in two places in Atlanta and we wouldn't find each other.
I'm just saying,
So,
I have
the
been,
funny thing was,
I have been
Nimoy
in a
was howling,
Walmart.
but Shatner was leaning over going, and I could see with his lips, he's going, I told you that made no sense.
Yeah, I'm with you, though. I've been in a Walmart with my family and not been able to find them.
I'm not hearing you at all.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we were just, you were talking before we had to interrupt about the Black Widow prelude.
Yes. And, originally, for example, my editor, what he wanted was that Nick Fury is the one who's talking all about Natasha. And I came up with the notion that Nick Fury had been captured by somebody who wants to know all about Natasha. And Nick basically, seeing no reason not to, tells the guy what he wants to know up to and including about her death. And at the end of it, the guy says she's dead. And Nick says, yeah. And the guy basically turns and he's going to leave. And Nick says, I don't even know who you were. And the guy says, my name is Ivan. And he walks out. I figured, oh, it's the widow's father. And I thought that would be a really great conclusion to it. And then the movie people came back and said, no, you can't use Nick Fury. And so you can't do that entire storyline. And by the way, we don't want to have Natasha's father mentioned in it anywhere. So, there went, my entire thing. And,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I kept putting in things, and the movie people kept saying, no, we can't do that. I mean, I even had in the thing. Boy, I'm hearing noise now. What is that?
Okay, how's that?
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. I even put in the thing from Iron Man 2 where Tony Stark says in reference to Natasha, I want one. And Pepper says no. And they said, no, he can't say that. I said, what do you mean he can't say that? He did say that. And the movie people are going, yeah, but we feel it's outdated. And it's like, but he said it. Didn't matter. They made us cut it from the comic. I mean,
wow.
It was just so odd. I mean, the fact that we were actually able to come up with 40 pages that they signed off on was really kind of amazing.
Wow. Well, that's, earlier in the discussion, we talked about taking a novel and turning it into a script, and now you have a script that needs to get shorter and shorter, and then find longer, and then get shorter because of all of the different changes that you have to make. Comic writing is you're kind of, you hit on it in this is a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
And that one sounded like an arduous one.
Oh, yes.
Is it always so arduous? Are there collaborators that it's easier to work with? Are there collaborators that it's more difficult to work with? And we're not going to ask you to name names. Just
actually, probably the easiest people I ever collaborated with was the guys who made the Halo video game.
Mm-hmm.
I did a Halo novel. My God, now I can't remember the title of it. I know I wanted to call it Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they wouldn't let me, which I was really upset about, because they really did wind up going to raid a Lost Ark. So I thought it was a perfect title, but they wouldn't let me call it that. But I worked with them in doing a novel, and I worked with them for writing a limited series for Marvel Comics. And in both cases, they were terrific, because usually when you're dealing with a licensor, they will simply say, no, you can't do that. Sometimes they will not even tell you why you can't do that. And they will almost never offer any kind of suggestion as to what you can do instead. Not the Halo guys. If there was something that we couldn't do, they would say, no, you can't do this because it conflicts this other thing that we established elsewhere. So instead, what you can do is this. Think this way you to make the same point, but it will do it in a way that doesn't conflict. And they did that constantly. They kept coming up with suggestions as to how to tell the story, and keep within the confines of their series. I mean, they were terrific. And if I had any questions, I could ask them the question, and they would come back with an answer like within an hour or so. So they're probably the best people to collaborate with.
Yeah, well, and by giving you all of that background and the things that would conflict or whatever, it just gives you more to write with, right? There's just more material for you to work with there. Now, I know a place where you probably had a ton of collaborators was Young Justice. With that many collaborators, was that an arduous process or a relatively fun process?
It actually went more smoothly than I thought it was going to, because if they were going to be doing something dramatic in the books that the characters appeared in, their own titles, they would be sure to let me know. And I was able to incorporate it into the book. I mean, for instance, when the character of Match took over for Superboy, they gave me a heads up about it, and I had Match in Young Justice, and I had him acting slightly differently. But if you didn't know what was going on, you wouldn't be aware of it. And then eventually I did the reveal that it was Match, and all of them were astounded when that happened. But yeah, I always try to incorporate the other stuff, and sometimes I wound up creating stuff. I mean, for example, there was an issue where I had all of the teenagers become adults, and all of the adults became teenagers. So you had, all the Young Justice characters were suddenly grown up. And my editor loved that, and I was just going to do that for one issue. And my editor said, no, this is going to be a company-wide crossover. We're going to do an entire
Freaky Friday.
Yeah. And we're going to do a company-wide crossover with all these other, we're going to do like 6 books in which we're going to be focusing on the individual Justice League characters interacting with the Young Justice characters. And I said, okay, if you really want to. And he said, good. Now, you need to come up with the story outlines for what everyone else is going to do in all the other books. I went, wait, what? Why do I have to come up with it? He says, because you're the one who's leading this crossover. I said, I'm not even the one who came up with this crossover. And he said, oh, hell. Okay.
Wow.
San
Oh, what do we got
Diego
here?
is canceled.
What? San Diego Comic-Con, ladies and gentlemen. If you're here at the CyberCon page, you're obviously a convention goer. San Diego Comic-Con has been officially canceled.
Kath, what's the source
This
on
year's
that?
San Diego Comic-Con. So we will look forward to what Comic-Con International.
Where's it on? They're pretty reliable. It's on IGN.com.
ITN, yeah.
IGN.
IGN, excuse me.
Recognizing that countless attendees save and plan for its conventions each year, and how many exhibitors and stakeholders rely on its events for a major portion of their livelihood, they had hoped to delay this decision in anticipation that COVID-19 concerns might lessen summer. Continuous monitoring of health advisories and recent statements by the governor of California have made it clear that it would not be safe to move forward with plans for this year. Okay, wow. So you heard. Yes, CyberCon, San Diego Con is canceled.
Wow.
This is CyberCon. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, conventioneers out there everywhere. It's official. San Diego Comic-Con has been canceled. Comic-Con International's San Diego event, probably the sort of the mother of us all, if you will, when it comes to conventions. They have canceled due to COVID-19. So keep your eye on the news to see what will be coming. I know that Comic-Con International did some really cool virtual stuff following the cancellation of WonderCon in Anaheim. So look for some of their content. It may be still available or coming from people at home, much like our CyberCon event is. We'll try to keep you up to date on that. We're hanging out. We've been hanging out for the last 45 minutes with Peter David. I want to ask, because it's me and I get to, and they told me that I'm the host, so I get to do stuff like that. I want to ask about working on Babylon 5. What was that like for you, man? So many great writers on that show.
Oh, yeah.
And so what was that like for you?
Well, that was a whole adventure in and of itself. Joe Straczynski approached me about writing Babylon 5, writing an episode. And he gave me the basic outline of what he wanted. He wanted me to do a story in which Londo Mollari's 3 wives, whom he would refer to as pestilence, famine, and death, show up. And they cause trouble on Babylon 5. Also, the station winds up having a first encounter with a new alien race. I wrote up the outline, and Joe read it over, and he said, it's too Star Trek. And I didn't know what he meant, and he wasn't really able to explain it. And I did a revise of it. And then he said he wanted to meet with me at, appropriately enough, San Diego Comic-Con. And he brought in Harlan Ellison as well. Harlan was an advisor on the show. And Joe said, I've decided to spike the story. I'm really not satisfied with what you've got here. Now, the thing was, Harlan, in the meantime, had told me that I should watch a movie or read a play called The Women. And I read The Women, and the 3 wives clicked into my head. And I also came to the realization of what Joe meant when he said it was too Star Trek. At the end of by the end of the episode, all the stuff that the wives had no really permanent effect. So that by the end of the episode, everything was back to what it was at the beginning. So it was completely self-contained, which was pretty much standard for Star Trek. Joe wanted to see development. He wanted things to change. So I came into the meeting prepared, and I knew that everything that I had done wrong. And Joe said he's going to spike the story. And I said, no. I know what to do now. Let me do another rewrite. And Joe said, no, you can't do another rewrite. It's not allowed by WGA rules. I said, okay, let me go straight to script. And he said, no, you can't go straight to script because I'm not satisfied with the outline, which I couldn't do a third rewrite on because of WGA rules. And I was really, and he said, don't worry, I'll hire you to do another script further down the line. And I was thinking, no, he won't. And I thought about writing the script anyway. And I asked Bill Mooney, should I write the script anyway? And Bill said, absolutely not. And I asked my agent, and she said, definitely not. And I asked Harlan, and Harlan said, for God's sake, no, don't write the script. And naturally, I wrote the script because the wives would not shut up in my head. I did away with the entire story with the alien race because they couldn't figure out how to make that fit in at all. And I wrote the script that I had come up with in my head. And what I did was I sent it to Joe, and I said, and this part was true, that that DC Comics had approached me about writing for the comic book. And since he said he was going to spike the story anyway, and since he'd have to read the script for DC to approve it, could he give this script a read and tell me what he thought of it? Now, it was a transparent ploy, but I thought I was being clever. Joe called me on September 23rd. I remember the day because it was my birthday. And Joe says, Peter, I got your package. I went, oh, okay. He said, I thought we agreed you were not going to do this. I said, well, like I said, it's for DC Comics. And Joe says, no, I don't want this to be in the comic book. And I went, oh, okay. He says, I'm going to produce it. We're filming it in 3 weeks. And I went, you son of a bitch. Which, of course, is exactly what you want to say to someone who's just hired you.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, if you would like to come out and be on the set where they're filming it, you can do so. And you have to understand that this is very rare in television. Usually, the guy who's the writer has nothing to do with the show as it's being filmed. You know, you turn in the script and then you get the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I flew out and I was there for the entire week that they filmed my show. And while I was there, Joe said, we have an opening for a script because the guy who's working on the script, it's just not working out. And do you have any other ideas for a script? And I pitched an idea at him. And he said, okay, that actually, I pitched an idea in which I had Garibaldi get involved in a shooting incident with the Minbari, with the Satori. And Joe said, could you have it be Sheridan instead? And I said, yeah, I mean, I had it be Garibaldi because Garibaldi's a cop. But I said, yeah, I can have it be Sheridan. And he says, okay. And I said, and he says, go to script. I said, do you want me to write an outline? He says, no, not necessary. You clearly get the show. You know, and I thought, wow, I've come a pretty freaking far way that I've gone from I'm canceling your script and you can't write another outline to, okay, you clearly totally get the show. Go ahead and write a script. So, you know, I was very pleased and flattered by that.
It's one of the things, and that actually, your story actually answered my question, I think, because I was going to ask you, at that time period, most television was what we would consider today episodic television. It was self-contained. It wrapped itself up. Today's television audience is used to those long story arcs.
Very much so.
They're used to the long format storytelling. In fact, some series are so into their long story that they don't think about their short stories, their encapsulations. So we're so used to that now. But when you were writing for B5, that was new. That was people were used to writing encapsulated episodic television, not this long format
that could be shown in any order.
Yes,
because they figured the real money was going to be made in syndication, and in syndication, they generally don't pay the slightest bit of attention to the order in which the shows are aired. You can watch an episode of the first season of Star Trek, and then go straight to the third season and then the second season, and it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, and that was, of course, that was intentional back then. Like you said, the money was in syndication. There was intent to be able to show you a 43-minute story encapsulated right there with the same cast that you loved, but a short story. Whereas today's television, for many people, especially in the era of binge watching, has really transitioned into that Babylon 5 model. They're all long format storytelling. They're telling you these long, the arc is at least a season, if not more in some cases. So As a writer yourself, has there been a challenge? I mean, obviously that was one of your first experiences in altering and shifting the paradigm. Has there been any challenges to your writing in that shifting paradigm?
Well, there's always challenges to writing because there's always people involved with varying degrees of creativity who, oh, that's my daughter Caroline back there. Hi, honey.
Hello, Caroline. CyberCon, Caroline.
Yeah.
CyberCon.
Yep, pretty much. There's always challenges because there's always going to be people of varying degrees of creativity who generally feel that they know much better than you do. And they're always going to want changes. And sometimes it can be really insane. I mean, when I was working on Space Cases for Nickelodeon, I remember there was a time we got a memo from one female executive who said, I have shown this script to my 7-year-old daughter. Here are her notes. Please implement them. You know, and you would wind up getting people who were scientifically illiterate. I mean, again, on Nickelodeon, we had a sequence in the script where we had the characters were going to land on a heavily vegetated moon. And the Nickelodeon guy said, isn't there just one moon? And I said, in the galaxy? I said, there's more than one moon in our own solar system. One of our characters comes from Titan, which is a moon of Saturn. Don't you even read our own Bible? So, you know, you'll just get people who don't know anything. And it's hardly limited to me. I mean, I think it was Brian Bendis who said that he was on a phone conference with people from MTV about the Spiderman animated series. And the guy from MTV actually said, does it have to be a spider? And, you know, Brian said, okay, hold on. And he hung up. Because
does it have to be a spider? Wow. Okay. How do you answer that? I mean, there's no answer.
There is no answer. I mean, sometimes you ignore people. Sometimes you have to do what they say. I mean, there is one scene in Space Cases in which I had a character managing to make contact with his father. And the page that I wrote was, and the scene that I wrote was about a page and a half. It was 1.5 minutes of screen time. And different people from Nickelodeon kept wanting the scene to have different things in it. And I kept rewriting the scene and rewriting the scene to incorporate them all. And the scene grew to 5 pages long, 5 solid minutes of screen time. And then the executive producer read it and said, I don't understand what's happening in this scene. It's trying to accomplish way too many things. This should be narrowed down. And I went into my file. I pulled out the original scene that I had written. I sent that to him and he said, perfect. And the story editor looked at the date on the page and just started laughing. And I said, be sure to retype it and put in the current date. And she did that and he signed off on it. So it's like, you know, I mean, sometimes you got to just roll with this stuff.
Yeah. Wow. You've written in so many different mediums and in so many different, with so many different collaborators. Thank you, Peter, for sharing some of your story with us and your stories and anecdotes. We are so happy that you joined the CyberCon lineup.
Happy to do it.
Thank you so much. It was nice to meet the family. Hi, family. It really was. Honestly, that's what this is all about, guys. We're staying home. We're staying safe. We're staying with our families. And we are sharing our love of all things geekdom, literature, comics, movies, and even some music, some great things going on here. We've been hanging out, having I'm just geeking out. I've been having a good time. I just listen. I love the part where I don't even have to talk a lot. I just listen because, yeah, it's fun. So
it can be challenging. I mean, I was at a convention once where I was following George Takei, and when George wrapped up, the guy who was running the convention said, okay, ladies and gentlemen, George Takei will be signing autographs over in Hall C. For anyone who doesn't want George's autograph, for the next hour. Here's Peter David. And I came out.
Yeah, you know.
This was my audience. Do you watch South Park?
Yes, yes.
You know Timmy?
Yeah.
My audience was Timmy, and the two people who were with Timmy, neither of whom spoke English. That was my whole freaking audience, and I managed to keep them entertained for an hour.
Well, you managed to keep us entertained. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your B5 anecdotes. I've been a huge B5 fan forever.
Oh, I'm going to mention really quick, in addition to my stuff on Amazon, you can also find my work at crazy8press.com. I have a number of books available there as well.
That's right. Thank guys. Check out Peter all over the web. Check him out on Amazon. Check him out at the website you just mentioned that Sage is going to put in the chat there for you, so you can click on it and go over there and check out. We got books, and just follow Peter's career.
Yes, and I'll see you all at San Diego. Oh, damn it.
Anyway, guys, wish we could see you in San Diego, but we won't. I keep looking at my watch because I know I'm running out of time.
Okay.
And I don't even like that knowledge. Peter David, thank you for hanging out with us so much. Thank you for sharing your anecdotes with CyberCon 2020. Guys, we are CyberCon 2020. We're going to say goodbye to Peter. Normally, I like to chat after the interview, but guess what? We have more CyberCon. 54 plus hours.
Who's following me?
Who's following you?
Yeah,
Peter has stuff on Crazy 8 Press 2. Oh, there we go. Athena Finger is coming up next. She is going to talk to us a little bit about the legacies of Batman and Bill, and of course, Athena's own journey as an artist. So that is something worth sticking around for, guys. From the historical perspective to the modern day perspective of artists. There must be an artist gene, and I didn't get it, sadly. There's an artist gene. Athena got it. She's kicking it, man. And so, speaking of which, Peter, before we let you go, I'm gonna ignore. Wait a minute, hold on, watch this. Go away. Anyway, Peter, one question. We see the family there in the background. Any budding writers?
Caroline is. Actually, Kathleen is a writer as well. And,
see that?
And Caroline writes as well.
There is an artistic gene. I just don't have it.
Oh, well.
Okay. Peter David, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to say goodbye. Peter, thank you. We can't thank you enough for being part of